NFTs and publishing. You can always tell when I'm getting excited because my hair gets crazy. I'm very excited about NFTs and publishing. Another industry that I think is severely underutilizing this technology. And I think another industry potentially a little slow to the game, mainly because the gatekeepers are caught in the 20th century, not dissimilar to music, art, and really anywhere that the product can exist and did exist for hundreds of years in an analog form. People think of publishing in terms of printing, so how the hell could an NFT apply to me? I'm going to kind of take this one in stages, which is a little bit different than I've done with other industries. Again, I encourage you to listen to all of the different industries, even if you think they have nothing to do with you and what you sell. Because on the one hand, a lot of the ideas are very similar. Concierge level service, communities, clubs, but the way that they apply to different industries might not only speak to you and fire off a couple of really creative and unique ideas, but more importantly, help you see the pattern of how NFTs can create value for you. And one of my most favorite things, residual income. Note, I didn't say passive because there is nothing passive about creating ongoing income streams. But for someone like an author who is self-publishing, who thinks I can only make money when I sell a book, or I can only make money when I get booked to speak, an NFT gives you the opportunity to continually be monetizing your audience, your readers, your fans, your clubs, your opportunities, and different ways in which you can collaborate and be in partnership and still make money. So with that, let's get into it. Again, I'm going to use some jargon. I'm going to use some how-tos and some different things you might not understand. I created an episode for that, my friend. So if you don't know how to create an NFT, if you don't understand how to mint an NFT, if you don't understand how a smart contract could work for you, or some of the vocabulary words and jargon that I'm using, please go listen to that episode. This episode is really for just riffing on different ideas in publishing. So let's get to it. The first and most obvious, which I also like to start with, is how can we monetize immediately? And for the average writer and author, I would say 80% of the market, that good old bell curve, you're probably starting with self-publishing or looking at building an audience for you, whether that be on social media or potentially in a fan club forum. You might even just be looking at like improving your skill. An NFT can be used to simply fund your work. You can think of it like Patreon. You can think of it like getting investors. But when you create a reason for people to pre-buy what you're going to create, you can monetize that. Now, a lot of people might be thinking, well, no one knows who I am. No one knows what I do. How could I possibly sell that? Please listen to the What is an NFT episode, because an NFT can absolutely simply be a promise. There are a ton of people who are willing to invest in art, who are willing to invest in companies, who are willing to invest in all types of solutions and ideas and theories that have yet to be proven. And in fact, getting people to purchase your NFT can be a fantastic way of doing that. An NFT can be a fantastic way of just simply building community. So obviously you can like pre-sell the first copy of your first edition signed. You could pre-sell pages, chapters. You could even use NFTs to take votes on what happens next in your writing, whether it's blogs, whether it's fan fiction, whether it's entire novels. So I think it's a really interesting way of thinking about if people are invested in art, if people want to see more art out there, if they really like the concepts that I'm talking about, why wouldn't they be willing to invest? Now, I can't answer that question for you. If you do doubt that anyone would ever want to invest in your art and invest in you as a writer or as a publisher, potentially you're an agent for other writers, that is absolutely something to unpack and explore, because if you don't value it, you're absolutely right. No one else will. That said, NFTs can be a fantastic way of proving and demonstrating that value. So with that, why not create an NFT for your first published work? You will send them a printed copy. You can see how much that would cost, including postage. You can make it a little bit special by signing it, writing something to them. You could even use NFTs in terms of voting to so that you could sell naming a chapter. You could sell putting your name in the book. You could sell being in the title credits. You could sell naming the book. So there's all sorts of different ways that you can monetize your existing writing. Now, I know that's going a little bit outside of like the strictly publishing terms. If we think of of publishing just in terms of taking a creative work and putting it out there, that's what I'm talking about. You can give people the opportunity to be invested in that process so they have voting rights. They can vote on what the cover of it looks like. They can vote on the medium in which it is released. They can vote if on the level of quality. I was going to say hardcover or softcover. That might not even apply to all different types of publishing. You could be making a zine. You could be making a printed magazine. You could be making a coffee table book. You could be representing a whole group of creators and then publishing that material. So the most obvious place to start with that is just going to be the first edition, signed, unique opportunity to buy that particular product, right? So secondly, and I think this is where NFTs apply the strongest to the publishing industry, and I think I already covered this, but is in creating that community. So what's beautiful about an NFT is it is verifiable and it is demonstrable. So if I have your NFT in my wallet, I can show that off, I can prove it, and I can join the club. So whether you're hosting a community on Meta or on Discord or any of the other gajillions of places, even if it's your own website and user forum, potentially an NFT is the way that somebody is able to join. You can also create tiered access. And so in that, someone can see what's happening at the highest level tier and that they're not a part of it, which might encourage them to buy that level of NFT. So I think an example, and when I think publishing, and I think probably my intention behind this is really books and writing publishing, because that can feel like such an impossible industry to crack. But like most creative industries, if you can build your audience and start with a rabid fan base, you're going to be able to get a much better deal when you do get national or even international representation. And an NFT and an NFT community can be a phenomenal place of doing that, especially because you're monetizing in real time. So bookcoin.org created a cryptocurrency and an NFT so that you could buy a fractional piece of a favorite work of yours, or for people like Alan Watts or Neville Goddard or some of these more existential writers or philosophers and educators from the 20th century that we didn't and weren't able to really capture a lot of their writings and lectures and teachings because just the technology that was available. So there might be one original recording, or there might be a lecture that was typed out rather than an entire book or collection of lectures. So someone is acquiring the original IP for that particular creative work and then giving you the opportunity as the fan to buy. And so how do you get that opportunity to buy? You purchase one of the NFTs, and then that puts you into the purchasing of the NFT of that creative project. So the Discord community is phenomenal. It's a whole bunch of nerds geeking out on books and other teachings and writings and even audio recordings from our favorite writers, creators, thinkers, change makers, teachers, guides, the people that really changed our worlds and lives. Not only are we able to get access to those original materials, but we can vote on who next. Who do we feel like is underrepresented in the market? Who do we want to actually see, not just be able to own a piece of their art and their work, but see more of because we're actually investing in it in a way that just simply didn't exist 50 or 100 years ago. So that's another way you can start to think about NFTs as community building in terms of publishing, is bringing to life works that didn't get the attention you think they deserve. You can use NFTs as a promise to sell merchandise, author readings, events, speakings. Listen, like, you know, if you and a whole bunch of fans in your neighborhood or in your area or potentially online want to get together to preview a particular piece of work or talk about a particular piece of work, NFTs can be the gateway and the way to sell access to those opportunities. And this isn't just about monetizing your audience. It really is about how can you put more art into the world. The patron model is how art started. It was people who invested in the things that made their lives better, whether it was learning or music or visuals. Life would be pretty boring if we couldn't hear anything, couldn't read anything, and couldn't see anything. And so it is through this investment model that you as the individual can support what you want to see more of in this world. And I think in terms of publishing, that's a really, for me, positive way of looking at how can I monetize this? If I'm not writing, how could I still afford to pay my bills? How could I still engage with my people and my audience, even if I'm not in a creation space right now? Again, NFTs can be a way that you can open up the gateway and you can airdrop. I haven't talked about this on the other episodes yet. Again, that's some jargon. And if you don't know how to, we'll go through that in other episodes, but you could airdrop snippets and get votes and send people different things that you're working on, or reach out to people if people want their work to be represented in a collected volume. How do they do that? They purchase the NFT. Another really interesting example of this was when a very popular online cryptocurrency, Moonbirds, an NFT project, launched a new offering. And they reached out to 10 of the biggest influencers online possible. And they said, we want to auction off a piece of your creative work of yours that has never been released yet. It's publishing, right? And so you as the buyer of this NFT, and this happens a lot if you've ever been in an NFT launch, sometimes you just get the opportunity to buy a handful of NFTs, but you don't actually know what you're going to get. It's randomized. And so the more you buy, the higher opportunity you have of getting something that could potentially be of high value, a rare NFT piece. But there were only 10 of these offerings that were made available through this launch. And one was from one of my favorite creators, Tim Ferriss. So the opportunity to get a piece of Tim's creative work that had never been released and published for it was incredibly exciting. But the opportunity to purchase that NFT, and it's randomized. You don't actually know what NFT you're going to get. I can't even remember actually if they said who these people were. You kind of just invested in the program, and so what made it cool was that the investment, the floor was low initially, because you didn't know what you were going to get. It's like this trust exercise. And that's how you build loyalty and brand value, is you put something out on the market that's at an incredibly accessible price, because people trust you and they trust your brand so much. They're willing to invest in whatever it is you do. But then you give them something that they could immediately resell for 10 times the value that they paid for it. Or they get something they perceive as being so valuable, it's priceless. So that's what I thought was so cool about this particular offering. What was this NFT? It was a piece of fictional writing, and Tim had never, ever publicly released anything fictional to that point. So that NFT, if you're a Tim Ferriss fan like me, is priceless. You might not ever sell it. You might be the proud holder. You might fractionalize it, which means you might sell pieces of it. It's just incredible what you can do with this digital technology when you start thinking about, what do I already do? What am I really excited about? Where would I like to bring people in on this process? Or where would I like to limit access to create some exclusivity and FOMO? I think I didn't really touch on the event. So I'm going to kind of dig into that a little bit, because I'm seeing a lot of speakers and a lot of creatives, and especially a lot of people who are more introverted, who are kind of afraid of getting in front of public, using NFTs and using these opportunities to really engage with their audience and their supportive audience in a really new and interesting way. So as an example, you're a poetry writer, you're a poet. You create an NFT to a once a month gathering where you read aloud one of your poems, and then you talk about the process of writing. So it's a little bit educational. It's a little bit of an inside look, direct access to you, the creator. And it's a way that you can monetize your day-to-day without having to be creating all of the time. That's one option. Every time you release something, it's probably going to benefit from some type of an event. So whether it's a launch party, whether it's a speaking tour, but it's where people can physically gather or gather in the digital world, or both, and witness this creation for them in person. So how can you use NFTs to act like a ticket? Listen to the events episode if you want a little more detail on that. But you can use an NFT as a ticket. You can use an NFT as an ongoing access. So if you're doing this once a month, or if you're touring, I might be in California at the time, or Denver at the time, or Utah at the time, or wherever the fuck in the world I might be at the time. And so I might miss that opportunity. But if I'm a really big fan, I want to be able to participate in everything you're doing, everywhere you are, despite where I am and what I'm doing. I would buy that NFT so that I could go to these events virtually. Or I could watch the recording after the fact. Again, if you're the introvert, if it freaks you out speaking in front of people, you're oftentimes an agent or a representing body will insist that you do a tour to support the release of a creative product. How could you do that in a manner that supports the way that you work and the way that you work best, so that it's like you're engaging with people in real time, but you're doing it in a manner that is safe. That's when your energy is at the best, that fits in around your own creative process and work schedule. You're looking at one right now. So with that, NFTs can give your people access, they can give your people exclusivity, they can give your people a promise. So you can sell something that hasn't even happened yet.